Hello, everyone. Welcome to our talk today, which is all about search and rescue, staying safe. We have a wonderful host today, Mike. Mike is a leader for the 52 Hike Challenge. He has been on the team for what, Mike, two plus years now?
Yeah, over three.
Yep. And
Yeah.
I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about your experience, and then I will let Mike take over. I will be assisting on the back end. So, um, welcome again. Thank you for being here and learning. I'm going to let Mike take it away and introduce his guest today.
Right. Thank you, Carl. It's always dangerous when I'm handed an open mic or an opportunity to talk. I've been with the 52 Hike about 3 years. I love it. It was a lifesaver for me. I'm retired after over 40 years in the public safety sector. I've been a sworn city, county, state, federal law enforcement officer. I've been one of the first tactical paramedics in the Midwest, technical rescue specialist, all that good stuff. But I've always, since just a kid, been a fan and in love with the outdoors. I researched, did my due diligence on what challenges I was going to do, and 52 Hike Challenge was the best. I'm in the central part of North Carolina, in the Raleigh-Durham area. Um, and our guest tonight, I crossed digital footprints with him shortly after Hurricane Helene. What got me was here is this individual and his cadre of technical rescue specialists from Los Angeles County that have volunteered and came all the way out here to help us. Um, and the more I got to know him, the more I did my due diligence on him. This guy is just top notch, world known. Everybody in Southern California, I think, knows him. Mike Leum brings a tremendous portfolio of experience and knowledge. He is over chief of all the reserve deputies in Los Angeles County, and he is the assistant director of all of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department search and rescue teams. And it's a full plate, but this guy is just tremendous. If you have any questions that you or your followers in your states have brought up, now is the time to talk to one of the world experts on search and rescue in the outdoors. So, without further ado, Mike, welcome.
Thanks, Mike. I'm not sure who you were talking about, but I will try and continue the conversation.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. My name's Mike Leum. I've been doing volunteer search and rescue for about 34 years here in LA County, one of the busiest counties in the country for rescue. It just so happens that the team that I respond with, the Montrose Search and Rescue Team, is the busiest rescue team in all of California. So last year, our rescue team had about 190 missions over 52 weeks. In LA County in general, in total, I should say, there were 756 missions with our eight search and rescue teams. So, I don't know nationally where that puts us, but it's got to put us pretty high up there as far as numbers of rescues. And one of the things about our area is we pretty much have it all in LA County. Obviously, we've got the beach. We have Malibu Search and Rescue Team, and no, it's not a TV show. And then we have rescue teams up in the mountains going up to 10,000 feet of elevation, and we have the high desert. So we have pretty much all of the elements that you're going to come across here in LA County at some point during the year. Any one of those elements could act up. Right now, what our issue is, you may have heard of the PCT hike, the Pacific Crest Trail. So that goes from Mexico to Canada, and it takes people about 5 months to complete. I have a nephew that did it. He's a teacher, so he did it kind of over his summer break. And right now, They're coming through LA County, and we've had a couple of rescue responses already. The problem is the PCT hikers, they cache their gear at different drop spots along the route. And apparently they didn't realize that, yes, it does snow in LA County, because we've had people that we've rescued just over the last few days, literally soaking wet, wearing nothing but a pair of shorts. And unfortunately, their cold gear is further up the trail once you get closer to the high Sierras. So right now, that's kind of what's going on with us. But that's over and above our normal rescue responses, which is we have a few hot spots in our area where people like to go, waterfalls. We have a few mountain peaks that people like to go to. And inevitably, somebody goes out there unprepared. They didn't tell anybody where they're going. They don't have any navigation. And I tell people all the time that it's not like baseball. It's not three strikes, you're out. It's one strike and you're out. You make one wrong turn, you're out. You don't have any one of the 10 essentials that might save your life, you're out. You're by yourself, nobody knows where you are, you get hurt, you're out. So we try and impress upon people that, you know, I don't know the average age of this group, but if you're old enough to know anything about Gilligan's Island, you'll know that it starts off with the 3 hour tour. And that's how many of our searches start is somebody figured they were just going to go out for a 3 hour hike. And next thing you know, we are overnight.
Sure.
Um,
Mike, what my hiking, I don't think is the number one type of rescue you respond to. What's your team's number one rescue response?
So it's probably about a 50-50 mix of rescues versus searches. So we have a major highway that goes through our area. And so every day we have thousands of cars that commute over the mountain to get to downtown Los Angeles. That's a big source of cars that go off the side, hundreds of feet. And then we've got on the weekends, we have motorcyclists that have decided that this is a great racetrack up here. And so they go racing around. And our team has more patient contact probably than most because we staff a truck every Saturday and Sunday on the hill to pre-deploy for the inevitable motorcycle crash or car over the side or missing hiker. So
Sure.
we have a variety of things, but that's just to kind of give you a little bit of a background. I know Mike, he's got some areas and questions he wants to cover.
We,
So let me take it
it's
back to you, Mike.
it's interesting. We're all going driving to go to most of where we're going to go hike. And if you're anybody like me, I kind of get my attention drawn off looking off the side of the trail and off the side of the highway. So, that successful hike definitely starts on getting to the trail. Don't get in a car wreck. Um, You've shared your stats with us. It seems this year we're really, unfortunately, hearing about more problems in our media about hikers getting in trouble and needing rescued. Now, I think that might be because it's the fastest growing outdoor sport in the country. But is there a common element that seems more prevalent that our hikers are getting in trouble with?
I would just say, in general, a lack of preparedness, meaning, we have people that don't check the weather for the day. And I mean, we all know your phone will tell you everything you need to know about today's weather. And for whatever reason, some people don't check it. The other thing, too, is, people don't realize that sunset may be listed on your phone as happening at 7:05 p.m. Well, up in the mountains, it starts happening a lot sooner than that because the sun's disappearing behind mountain peaks and it's getting darker quicker up there, especially if you deal with canopy and trees. So people get stuck by darkness. Um, and for us, one source of rescues is we have some people that have been posting videos of very remote locations and these gorgeous waterfalls and there is no trail to get there. And so when when people make these posts about these waterfalls, well, a lot of people want to go find them and check it out, and they are gorgeous, and you can do it safely, but it takes, gear and training and physical fitness. And so people just head off towards this general direction of a waterfall. And not only is there no trail, but it's like river from wall to wall, and you're walking down the middle of the stream. Then you have to descend down some of these waterfalls. Well, as you all know, getting down a waterfall is a lot easier than trying to get up it. And so these people get stuck at the bottom of the waterfall, and now they have no way to get out. Um, One of the things that is definitely an entire game changer for search and rescue everywhere is technology, mostly through like iPhone SOS, satellite SOS. So that has saved dozens of lives just here in LA County, many of which I was personally involved with the rescues. And without that, either somebody dialing 911, it going up to a satellite and then going to our station, either that or the crash detection on your phones, that has saved many lives that I've been involved with. So technology is definitely helping us get to people quicker. It doesn't seem to be helping people prepare any better, but it is saving lives.
You mentioned being in shape. You're a beast when it comes to staying in shape. And as I followed you, you have such a love of the outdoors, and your family does too. How long have you been an advocate of everything in the outdoors? And was there something that got you to go in the direction of search and rescue?
So I went through Boy Scouts as a kid, and that definitely laid the groundwork. Every year we would do a 1 week long backpacking trip. So that seed was planted a while ago. It And then, I mean, growing up, going surfing, going to the beach, going hiking, snow sports, all of that occurred. But it wasn't till about probably about 1990, 91, there was a missing Boy Scout, and there was a big media blitz about it. And I just felt like the need to really go out and help find this kid. But I realized I didn't have the type of training that's probably required to do stuff like that. So I started doing my research, much like Mike, you did your research about the 52 hike challenge. And I found that one of the busiest rescue teams was right down the road from me, the Montrose Search and Rescue Team. So I've been on that team ever since. And I have somewhere over 1,600 mission responses. Um, and that, I mean, as many stories, actually, there's more stories than I can remember. Unfortunately, the ones you remember, the tough ones,
Yeah,
the ones where
definitely
maybe
are.
somebody didn't make it. And uh, yeah, so I get asked all the time, like, well, how many people have you saved? I have no idea,
Yeah, yeah,
but I can tell you a lot of details about the ones that we couldn't.
I'll bet. Um, Can you talk to us a little bit about altitude issues? You're in the mountains all the time. I know if I went to the mountains right now, I'd be really in trouble because I'm down here at sea level. But can you tell us a little bit about altitude sickness and what our
Sure.
hikers might experience?
Well, for an example, we get requested to assist on rescues and searches at Mount Whitney, which is, 1505.
Uh,
When I was younger, it was 14495. Then GPS technology made it 1505. And so right now, as I'm talking to you, I'm at about 1,800 feet elevation. And so, my pager could go off and we could get in trucks, and in 5 hours, we're getting flown up to near the summit of Mount Whitney, which would be 12,000 feet, with, the requirement of hiking the additional 3,000 feet to get to the top if that's where our search area or the rescue is. So I have experienced acute mountain sickness, AMS, And it's one of those things. Unfortunately, you never really know when it's coming. There are medications that you can take ahead of time if you know you're going to be into elevation, and primarily that's Diamox. And I have used Diamox many times for Mount Whitney searches. I've used it on Mount Rainier. Um, I haven't needed it on Mount Hood. That's about 11,000 feet. But yeah, altitude sickness is no joke. And it comes in a couple of different forms. There's HAPE, high altitude pulmonary edema, and HACE, high altitude cerebral edema. And both of them can kill you if you don't take drastic measures to reverse the effects. And pretty much the only answer for both of those is to go down in elevation. So either that or hopefully you're getting a helicopter evacuation very soon. But the immediate answer is to lose elevation. So, and as I mentioned, here in LA County, we do go up to 10,000 feet, but we haven't really had the need to take mitigating steps for altitude up to 10,000 feet. But if we're going to go to like Mount Whitney, then yeah, we're going to be thinking hard about mitigating the possible effects of acute mountain sickness.
Sure. You mentioned the 10 essentials on any hike. I mean, I believe in carrying them. If I'm going for a mile hike, I carry it. Um, we also are stressing that our leaders and our participants have basic wilderness first aid. Uh, it just can't hurt. Um, is there anything else that we can do to minimize uh,
Well,
the
so
risks on the trail and help you as first responders?
well, the first thing we tell people is if you're lost, then stop right where you are because there's going to be a bunch of people coming to look for you, like me. And frequently we'll have people just, I get it. It's hard to just sit still and wait for maybe hours. And so people try and, walk their way out of a problem. And very seldom does that work out well for them. Um, excuse me, I got my phone going off. Um, So there's a lot of emergency communication devices out now. We have InReach, which is fantastic. I have a personal InReach that I take with me on extended operations because I can literally text back and forth with my wife and let her know, like, hey, looks like it's going to be an all-nighter, so, don't wait up.
Mhm.
Um, and it also has a SOS feature. And so we do get hikers that activate the SOS feature on the InReach. And sometimes it's a third party activation. So someone will come across somebody in distress on the trail, and the victim may not have an inReach, but this other hiker does. So sometimes they'll activate that, which is great because it gives us their location. So we get those coordinates, and to us, that's very helpful. Plus, it allows us to communicate back and forth and tell them, hey, don't move, and how many people are you with? And and what type of equipment do you have? Is anybody hurt? I'm really sorry.
Tell them to call 911. Oh.
Yeah, that might be what they're doing. That's the problem. Um, regardless, so having some type of communication device is super helpful. And nowadays, if you have an iPhone 14 or higher,
Mhm.
you've got SOS potential there for a 911. One thing we always tell people though is put your phone in airplane mode or turn it off and only turn it on when you want to take a picture because when phones are in the mountains, they are continually searching for cellular signal, and that drains the battery really fast. So it's really unfortunate to be on the phone with somebody and then have their phone die.
Oh, I'll bet.
and that happens.
Um, you mentioned about when others are on the trail and they see other hikers that are in distress. I'm a real advocate of preventive search and rescue and wilderness first aid. Um, One of my hopes is that our hikers and our hike leaders all become uh, ambassadors for preventive search and rescue on their hikes. And if they see any of their hikers in their group that are struggling, or even hikers coming uh, that they meet on the trail, that they'll offer up assistance. Can you tell us a little bit what PSAR is?
So we're big believers in PSAR also, preventative search and rescue, to the point where any group that asks us to come to a meeting and talk about hiking safety, we're happy to do it. It's typically like Boy Scout groups, because I've been on too many rescues where, the scout leaders, God bless them, they don't really have the experience necessary to take a group of kids out on a death march of a hike. And that to me gets very frustrating when the kids are at risk as a result of actions by an adult. So we're happy to go talk to groups all the time. Ideally, it would be nice if we could staff people at trailheads to provide information. But the bottom line is, as busy as a rescue team as we are, we don't have the bandwidth to do that because we are responding to rescues almost 3 times a week or
Yeah.
more.
There's a group, I'm sure you're familiar with them, Busar. They're out in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, and they're actually have been going out and setting up displays on trailheads and dedicate people to just that. It's
Well,
it's a great.
in our area, we have the Angeles National Forest, and so as much as we might want to put up some signs, everything has to go through the Forest Service.
Sure, sure.
And as you probably are aware, that's quite a bureaucracy to try and deal with, and they're very protective of their dirt, which I
Yeah.
can appreciate. And we actually have a good partnership with them, but yeah, it would be nice to really do some super proactive preventative search and rescue because I'd love to like have our team set up an easy up at a trailhead and have brochures and
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Um, you mentioned one other thing about hazards on the trail, then we'll get into some equipment issues. Snakes, poisonous envenomations. Out here, we've had a lot of media coverage on fatalities. Individuals were envenomated from rattlesnakes, and every one of them, they were trying to pick the snake up. I mean, rocket science.
Wow.
They're as scared of you as you are of them. Um, do you have any stories to talk about with your encounter with snakes, and not the two-legged ones, the ones that slither?
Huh. Um, yeah, so I might as well be Indiana Jones because anytime there's snakes, I'm like, snakes. Why has it got to be snakes? So I am a hater of snakes. And surprisingly, personally, I've had very few interactions or issues with them. Um, you know, the majority of the time, you get a long stick and you try and like move it off the trail, like far off the trail, so that it doesn't come back and get somebody behind you. But there was one time when we had a rescue and the trail was super narrow and there was a snake down on the corner of the trail. There was absolutely no way around that snake because trust me, I wanted nothing to do with it and I wanted to find a way to get around. There was no way around. And we had somebody with a medical emergency just 20 yards up the trail. So I pelted the thing with rocks until I didn't hear the rattle anymore. So if you're gonna be a snake and you're gonna be between me and a victim, you're probably gonna die. That being said, out here, a lot of the snake bites that I've read about have been really unfortunate incidents where, for example, a mountain biker might kind of do like a little lean over crash off the trail, and now he's in a bush. Well, it just so happens the snake was in the bush. So I tell people all the time, if you stay on the trail and if you are hyper vigilant, you should be able to avoid the snake.
Yeah. I I
And the
can
majority
I
of,
can count on one hand how many times I've seen a snake in
well, it's
all
funny
the
you
time I've been
mentioned
hiking.
hands because pretty much I would say 90% of snake bites are on the hand from the elbow below, and it's primarily men. And it's because a guy will have a 3 foot stick and he's messing with the snake, and the snake can jump 4 feet. So
Yeah.
guess what? You're gonna get bit. So don't be that guy.
Um, Mike, can you briefly tell us how, if I'm on the trail and I find someone in distress and I call 911, what's that? How does that response system work to getting professional rescuers on the scene?
So, we'll go through maybe a couple of different options. So if you have an inReach device and you push the 911 SOS button on your inReach, so that goes to a satellite, that goes to a control center. That control center figures out what state it got activated in. They'll send that notification to the State Office of Emergency Services. The State Office of Emergency Services will take it and figure out what county it was activated in. They'll send it to that county Emergency Operations Bureau, in our case. And then that county agency, usually the sheriff, has to figure out where in the county it was activated and what rescue team we need to send. So that whole process from initial activation of the device to us getting activated is about 45 minutes. And that kind of, that's pushing up really hard on that golden hour. We have this rule that if somebody has a traumatic injury, within an hour, they need to get advanced life support. So while the InReach, when it first came out, was a game changer, what's way better now is the iPhone satellite SOS notification
Right.
because that goes right to our station. It doesn't go through a call center, and our station gets the coordinates of the phone because sometimes, let's say you're hiking and you have cell service and you call 911 and you say, "Hey, I came across a guy's got a broken leg." And so that 911 call will get sent to a rescue team. But part of the issue is you have to know what you're looking for on the back end because sometimes we'll get coordinates that are for the cell tower, and that does no good. That
Yeah.
could be 10 miles away.
Yeah.
So we have to dial down to, through the metadata and find, okay, well, where's the phone? Because we don't care where the cell tower is. So,
Yeah.
the iPhone is great because that goes straight to a satellite, straight to the nearest 911 provider automatically. And it comes with the GPS coordinates for the phone, plus the ability for our station desk to message back and forth to find out the nature of the injury, how many people, and we already have their exact location. So, that to me is the best, is the satellite SOS feature on phones. I understand that Samsung and probably some others are going to be coming out with that same feature pretty soon.
That is just amazing information to me. And the differences between the devices. Obviously the iPhone, a lot more people have that than the InReach. You know, the golden hour brings it to the next topic that's very interesting to me because you can just take your radio and call one up. Tell us about Rescue 5.
Air Rescue 5, our helicopter.
Yes, yes,
So the way rescue is is attacked in our county, it's two ways. It's from the air and from the ground. So I oversee the 8 search and rescue teams, which is the ground component, and then we have a rescue helicopter, which is a Super Puma. It's staffed with 5 people, 2 pilots, a crew chief, and 2 medics, and they respond to rescues in the mountains also. They're only a daytime ship, So
Hmm.
if we have something during the day, then they'll be responding with us. And then at nighttime, if we need a helicopter, we'll use the fire department because they have nighttime helicopters. So I tell people all the time, if you're going to get hurt in the mountains, get hurt in LA County because you're going to have multiple agencies racing to get to you. You're going to have the sheriff's department, the fire department, the Forest Service, and literally most of our rescues, whether it's a car over the side, a missing hiker, we pretty much get them all handled in about 4 to 5 hours. That's an average. Now, that being said, we still have hikers that have never been found up in the mountains. And just the day before yesterday, we received some new information on a missing hiker. Her name's Monica Reza,
Yeah.
and she went missing last August.
Yeah.
And somebody took, there was a bunch of drone footage that was taken last year during that search. And just recently, it was ran through some new AI software, came up with an anomaly of a blue something. Well, she was known to have a blue backpack. And so we said, we got to check this out. And so we flew up there. The weather was coming in. We didn't have a lot of time. Pilots did a great job, got us super close. Mike, you may have seen that video on my
Yeah.
social.
Yeah.
And we found out it was a balloon.
Oh,
So, you know, and some people think like we stop looking or we cancel searches. We never cancel searches. If someone's missing up in the mountains, we continue to look for them. We continue to try and work up new information. So we don't like leaving people unaccounted for up in the mountains. Sometimes I tell people we're in the reunion business, whatever that might look like.
yeah.
So, hopefully it's a good reunion, but sometimes all we can do is offer closure.
That is so honorable. There's just no other words for it. Um, you and your teams are the cutting edge here in the United States. If there's a disaster, you're liable to see Mike and his teams there within a day. But you've gone worldwide and gained expertise in various catastrophic disasters. Can you tell us a little bit about that and, of course, about 6-8 International Rescue?
Sure. So, back in 2014, 15, there was a big earthquake in Nepal. And there were villages, remote villages that nobody could get to or had gotten to. And I knew like, well, that's right up our alley. We've got the training and equipment to get up into those areas. So I raised some money and I told our sheriff's department, I'm like, hey, I've got a team ready to go. We have the money. We just need your blessing. And then it just kind of died a slow death of bureaucracy. So I told myself that is never going to happen again. I ended up joining Team Rubicon, that maybe some of you have heard of. It's a fantastic organization. I'm still a member of Team Rubicon. I went to Hurricane Harvey with Team Rubicon. I went in Texas. I went to Hurricane Ian in Florida with Team Rubicon, and they're fantastic. They're more oriented towards relief, which is super important, obviously. I'm more oriented toward rescue. So when the Russia-Ukraine war kicked off, within probably 3 weeks, I was talking with a buddy of mine, Jack Osborne. You may know him, son of Ozzy Osbourne, and he's a friend of mine. And we were saying, we really somebody ought to do something because a lot of innocent people were dying, and obviously they needed help. And so Jack found out about a unit or a group that was going over there, third wave volunteers. And Jack called me and says, hey, I got a spot. Do you want to go? I said, absolutely, 100%. What's the
What
mission?
did your wife say about that?
That was interesting. Yeah, I basically called her and gave her about 18 hours notice that I would be
Oh,
getting on a plane. And the mission was to rescue special needs orphans because in all these orphanages, the caretakers all left because they had to go, either be with their families or flee the country with their families. So all these orphanages got abandoned. And then you had special needs orphans. So, just a terrible situation. And so we went over there with the idea of rescuing these special needs orphans, some of which were already spoken for by American families. And that was the primary goal. Unfortunately, we got there and it was a bureaucratic nightmare because paperwork had not been done. And, even though we got a family that is spoken for a particular child, you can't just take that kid and leave the country with it because that's actually human trafficking. So our mission shifted from that to assisting people to get to the border who needed to flee the country. So we spent a week there helping people get to the border, and that kind of started the ball rolling. On the 14-hour flight back, Jack and I were literally writing on a cocktail napkin, like, well, we could do it better. And kind of developed a framework for what became 6-8 International Rescue. And the name was Jack's idea. 6-8 from Isaiah 6-8 in the Bible. That is the verse that says, the Lord said, "Who will go for us and whom shall I send?" And I said, "Here am I, send me." So everybody knows it as the "send me" phrase in the Bible. And so that's the name of our organization. It's a registered nonprofit, 6-8 International Rescue. And I use that only for deployments that our sheriff's department will not authorize or sanction. So let's go to the earthquake in Turkey a few years ago. Big earthquake in Turkey. Half the country was leveled. And so I immediately got a team together. I got funding together and we made the appropriate connections with the government, their government, got airfare sponsored. And so I basically sent an email off to my chain of command in the sheriff's department. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to be gone for a little bit. Here's what we're doing. Here's who's going. It's bought and paid for. You know, peace out." And then I get a phone call from an executive, and they said, "Hey, well, we want to support you. Why don't we make it an official mission? That way you're covered for workers' comp in case anybody gets hurt." So that was the very first LA County Sheriff International Rescue Deployment. And it was hugely successful. Literally when the first day when we actually landed at the airport, I went over to a tent that said International Team, check-in. Well, I knew they weren't going to have our name there because we didn't go through FEMA. We actually tried to go through USAID and FEMA. And my bosses contacted FEMA and said, "Hey, we got these guys going, can you logistically support them, help them?" And they came back and they denied. They said, "Sorry, at this point, we cannot support the sheriff deployment." And I knew that would happen because FEMA is for firefighters, run by firefighters. Their response model is they have task forces in Virginia and in LA County, here in LA County, and they activate those task forces, and that is their international response, which is fine. That's great. They do a great job. But we were going anyway, and it wasn't going to cost the taxpayer a dime. The Los Angeles County the Los Angeles County Fire Department sent their task force. They sent 84 firefighters. They sent a C-130 full of gear. And in case you don't know, 84 firefighters getting paid overtime. We're talking a couple $1 million easy. And they spent a couple of weeks over there, at least 2, maybe 3 weeks, and they had 0 live saves. We were there for 1 week. On day one, we had 2 live saves where we pulled people out from underneath the rubble. And then a week later, we had another live save of a 17-year-old kid. So our deployment was hugely successful. And we did you're going to laugh, our total expenses for that week in going to Turkey, staying there, renting cars, hotel, food, $3,000 for 7 people. I'd say that's pretty economic That's pretty good return on your investment. And those were all private dollars. So not a single dime of taxpayer dollar was spent. And it was hugely successful. So then after that, we had Hurricane Helene hit in North Carolina. And in that instance, a friend of mine who lives in South Carolina, said, you guys need to be out here. I said, yeah, yeah, we do, but we have no way to get there. Well, so he sponsored three of us to fly out there to Asheville and go to work there. And that was a great deployment because we were able to access remote areas that nobody had been to. And there's an off-road driving school in Asheville, uh, the Land Rover Defender driving school, and they were shut down because of the hurricane, but their trucks were fine. So they supplied us with a fleet of trucks and drivers to drive us through the back roads of Asheville, North Carolina, and which was fantastic because in the command post you had New York City Fire Department was the incident command, and they do a great job, but they're just looking at maps. They don't know what the actual terrain and dirt looks like. And so our drivers that we had, they were able to tell the command post, yeah, well, okay, that bridge is out, but you can take that little truck trail up there and you go through Billy Bob's backyard and you could get to where you need to go. And that was it was just tremendously helpful. And so we were able to provide emergency services to a lot of people that had not seen anybody. Unfortunately, and that was my third hurricane, and that was probably the most devastating hurricane I'd ever seen, just because it occurred in the mountains and it took out entire valleys. And it was just shocking to see the amount of devastation. Now, Texas, Hurricane Harvey, that was flat. So that was
Oh,
just a matter of storm surge and rising water. And we were probably 30 miles inland, and there was sand underneath our feet from the ocean. So that was a big storm surge. Hurricane Ian in Florida, that was just hellacious winds and damage, and mobile home trailers that just got ripped apart. But Hurricane Helene in the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina, that was just devastating. It took out entire families because the debris flow would just go down a valley and take out anything in its path.
it it was really a lot of people put all their attention on Asheville, and the mountain communities were just devastated and are still reeling. I mean, there was just one community just got their railroad service back through just last week, and Lake Lure's just almost a full pool. So
Well,
I saw,
one of the things I learned about Asheville um, and surrounding communities is they're pretty resilient people. That's
oh
for sure.
yeah,
And there was more than once for sure that I went past the sign and said no trespassing, a little dirt road, and we needed to go see if everyone was okay. So we drive past it, and there's another sign that says trespassers will be shot. I'm like, okay, keep going. And there's another sign that said trespassers will be shot again. And those people don't mess around. They don't mess around. And we got met with some guns, but when they realized why we were there, they're like, "Oh, hey, come on in."
Western North Carolina mountain folk are so resilient, and they have the biggest hearts.
Yeah.
It's just, I took a lot of supplies up there, and it's just amazing. Once you find someone that can get you in there, they're just great people.
Well,
Um,
and it was pretty interesting. One of the things that we never realize when we're doing remote or international work is the impact it has on people's psyche when they see the patch that says Los Angeles County Sheriff. When we were in Turkey, I mean, they were just beyond appreciative because the area we were working in Turkey was Antakya, which is right on the Syrian border,
uh-huh.
and not a lot of rescue teams were willing to go there. But when I saw that they had not had many rescue teams in that area, I said, well, that's where we want to go. and the people there were just beyond appreciative to see America there.
Yeah.
There's no other Americans probably for hundreds of miles. And then in Asheville, a little old lady saw my shoulder patch and she said, "You mean to tell me you came all the way from Los Angeles?" I said, "Yes, ma'am. I heard you needed help, so we had to come." Um, and then last year we went to Thailand for big earthquake in Thailand,
Yeah.
and again we didn't expect the reaction from the people that America was there to help them.
Yeah.
And not to get political, but unfortunately, that's kind of a reality because more than a few people were saying, "Oh, okay, so America's here to help us. Where's China?"
Yeah.
And I'm just here to help.
Yeah. Um, I'm nursing a partially torn or very strained ligament, and this is a problem I have when I'm hiking is I fall. And my doctor doesn't seem too concerned. He just says, watch the trail, not what's around you. Uh, Anything you can recommend for those of us that are susceptible to falls?
Well, I'm hoping you have a pair of hiking sticks.
Yes. They were in the back of the car.
That and hopefully you're not hiking alone, Mike.
Yeah, my wife was with me and she's still,
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, so there's, as long as you're taking, those types of precautions, I mean, stuff's still going to happen. Um, but, when it does, it's nice to have a plan, like, know where the nearest ranger station is. So maybe your wife can go get help or,
Yeah.
have communication devices with you so you can send an emergency message. And the other thing I tell people all the time is, I don't know. It depends on what list you look at for the 10 essentials, but one thing I'm never without is duct tape.
Yeah.
On my hiking stick, I wrap about an inch of duct tape around my poles, and I can't tell you the numbers of times that has come in handy because just a little bit ago, a few months ago, came across a missing hiker who had continued to hike, did not stay where he was, and he had literally almost walked out of his shoes. His sole was just flopping off his foot, and so boom, took some duct tape, wrapped it around and he was good to go.
You
You
know,
know,
uh, I think our hikers it's pretty simple. We get in trouble from bad preparations, bad choices, and just plain bad luck. And I there's just no words, Mike, that can express my appreciation for you sharing your time here with us. I know your phone's blowing up too. Carla, are you there?
yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Do we
Okay.
have any questions?
We have a couple questions and great. Thank you, Mike, for all the information and that definitely had some really important tips in there. So a couple of the questions are if someone has fallen off a mountain, and is there anything that they can do to maybe try to get back up on trail? I mean, is there any tips?
So it all depends on a few things, obviously, if they're ambulatory or not ambulatory. So if they're ambulatory, um, if they fell off a trail, that means they're probably in a ravine of some sort. So rather than try and scale up something that might be too steep, if that's not safe, you could always try and go down canyon. But of course, if you don't know the area, then that's not going to be a big help. So familiarization with the area is key because then hopefully you would know it's like, okay, well, I know the road crosses this canyon like a quarter mile down, downstream or down canyon, and you could just head for that. Um, but because that first fall, if it wasn't all that bad, you don't want to actually take a worse one. So, you want to try and mitigate that possibility. Now, if you're not ambulatory at all, then you need to get some help. And so a few things to do is um, try and summon help either with a whistle, which should be part of your 10 essentials, or yelling and screaming, or your iPhone or your satellite device. So, this is exactly why it's important to have these things with you in case some of these things happen. Um, and then once that emergency notification has gone out, do whatever you can to make yourself seen from the air. Because at least here in Los Angeles County and most places in California, they will send a helicopter to look for you. And so even though you think you might be easy to see, well, from 500 or 600 feet up in the air, you disappear real quick. So spreading out, any type of like an emergency blankets are great because they're obviously a way to keep warm if you need it, but they're also reflective. They've got the foil on one side, and that's extremely helpful if you've got sunlight to be able to signal a helicopter. So, that's a great question because it's exactly why you need to have all of those 10 essentials with you.
Thank you for that. And on that note, when we were talking about now with the iPhone and the SOS, I know there have been people that ask, well, do I need my Garmin anymore? And from what I understand, I just, had this talk with Chris Hazard. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he does a lot of hiking videos and stuff. And he said, obviously your iPhone can get lost. It could, die. And hopefully you have a backup, right? Like, at least you have something. So is there anything else that you can add to that?
Well, I like having both because the inReach battery lasts for days. Whereas your iPhone battery might only last 4 hours. I mean, if it's still searching for a connection, your battery's going to go low. And then once your battery dies on your phone, then if that's all you got, then you're out of business. So I definitely like the combination of the two. Um, and with the inReach, you can message independently of your phone, or you use an app on your phone, which makes it real easy. It's just like sending a text. But if your phone battery dies, you still have the capability with the inReach to either send direct messages or hit the SOS button.
You know what I like also, and it's old school, is run down to REI and get yourself a compass and a topographical map of the area you're going to be hiking and learn how to use it.
Yeah.
Doesn't take up much room. Batteries
Amen.
die, stuff falls and gets broke, you know.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
and that goes for search and rescue people too, because we have a lot of new kids on the block coming up,
Yeah.
and they're all techie, and which is fantastic, trust me. But we also make sure they understand how to use a map and compass.
Yep.
yeah, and that was another question someone asked. They asked, what is your recommendation for the best navigational tools? So I mean, Mike, you answered it. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that.
Well, there's a lot of great apps
Mhm.
on there, and I'm sure many people on this call are already using any number of the various hiking apps that are out there. So those are a game changer. And if you're not using a hiking app, I would do some research, find one that looks user friendly to you, and start using it. Because those are extremely helpful. And even though we have our own Sartopo maps that are on our phones, I have a backup map that I use just because for me it's easier, more user friendly for me personally. So it's definitely a personal choice, uh, but just making the choice is the first important move.
Mike, I know
Absolutely.
we're running short of time, but I just wanted to ask you one more question. Does LA County Search and Rescue still stress leaving a note in the car, a
So
form or
if
something like that?
if you Google LA Sheriff hiking plan, just put
Okay.
that in Google, LA Sheriff hiking plan. you will go to a document that we created for people to fill out and put on our dashboard.
Great. Thank
I
you.
think I know we are pretty much at the top of the hour, and I want to, make sure we're mindful of everything. Mike, are you good to do? If we had to take a few more minutes, are you okay, or do you are
I'm
you
good.
okay?
It's the
So
other mic I don't know about.
I'm
yeah,
good.
thank you. Jenny had a question. Jenny, I'm not sure if you're able to unmute yourself, but you were talking about the subjective um, topic of, beginner, intermediate, advanced, being location dependent. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that or ask the question.
Sure, I will. I guess I'm in context of hearing everything. I'll tie it into a follow-up question. Is as you go into different areas and you hike, here in Houston or in the area, they say advanced, and it's not really advanced relative to, maybe Arizona or Colorado or Washington, right? And so I guess what I'm curious, and I was thinking about all like my early hiking days, I've always been a fairly confident hiker. And so when I went out within what I was comfortable with. If I felt like I was on a popular trail or something that was clearly marked versus like super back country, I never really put a lot of emphasis into the 10 essentials. Now, I mean, it is something I would do moving forward, but I didn't know that at the time. So I guess I'm curious is like, as you're going around and you're like, oh, I'm just doing a beginner 3 mile loop somewhere, you know, is it essential for someone to still take their Garmin InReach? It's something that's front country, it's a state park, there's a lot of like access. Do you find that there's any lines between kind of how the trails are rated, how people perceive themselves with their skill? How would this relate into how we can be the safest out hiking?
Well, in search and rescue, we have three basic types, and there's a lot more information available on the hiking apps, as you've already seen, I'm sure, as far as ratings, as far as being difficult, moderate, or easy. In search and rescue, it's pretty simple. We've got type three, like a type three rescue would be something from 0 to 3,000 feet of elevation. Um, and then type 2 rescue is 3,000 feet of elevation to 7,000 feet of elevation. And type 1 rescue is any environment over 7,000 feet. And that is a very basic way that we type our rescues, but that's really not enough for the hiking public. And so a lot of the trails, like All Trails, that app, a lot of those apps and websites do a great job, I think, of describing trails as being easy, moderate, or difficult. So to be honest, anywhere in the country, I would probably defer to those because, like you said, somebody from Houston who only hikes in Houston may have a very different idea of what an easy versus a hard hike is. And I think that some of the online descriptions are very helpful.
I recently had a doctor here on the podcast, and he was talking about how Texas hikers were going up in Colorado in shorts, but then they didn't realize there was going to be snow. And then, and that I think is also just to, Jenny, thank you for bringing the question because it just made me remember that, hey, when you're new to an area, that's why one of the leave no trace principles, the first one is plan and prepare ahead. So do yourself a favor and always research beforehand, like we talked about earlier, Mike, when you were saying the 3 hour
Yeah.
adventure. I'd never heard that before, but one of the best things you can do to take care of yourself is just take 15 minutes, research even All Trails now has a lot of people can leave their current comments. So a lot of times before I go on a hike, I'll read it and it's pretty spot on. People are saying, "Hey, there's mud on the trail, maybe the river crossings are, you know, take the 15 minutes the night before, check the weather, double check the weather, make sure you have the right gear." And I always say, carry the 10 essentials. I mean, worst case scenario, you don't use them. Best case scenario, you help a hiker out on the trail. Um,
Always. And
And
yeah.
and and
social
as your
media.
seasons change, go back in there and redo them a little bit. You don't need that winter stuff in there when it's the summertime necessarily, but you need definitely got to have that sunscreen, you know.
I
So
think
I always like to go in seasonally and change it up.
I think social media is definitely doing a better job because in the past, someone would post a video they took maybe months ago of, jumping off a waterfall. Well, they filmed that in the springtime when it was full, and now it's, let's say, September, and the level of that pond at the bottom of the waterfall is now 2 feet, not 10. And nowadays, there's a lot better and more current information being posted. So I would, check some of your local Facebook pages. There's a lot of local areas that have their own pages or hiking groups that have their own pages. And then people will put updates as far as conditions and they'll put the date that they were there. So you'll know, like, how recent is this information?
Yeah, it's called trip reports, by the way, for new beginners. You can look up trip report for and type in the hiking area or the trail. And you'd be surprised. There's a Peak Bagger app that I still use it here and there, but you can go in there and put a trip report. So there's a lot of resources and tools. I mean, of course, we can't go through them all today, but for the questions, I think we got through them. If anyone has any last little questions or want
Well,
to chime
also
in.
let me throw it out
Yep.
there. So 6'8" International Rescue, we do have Instagram, we do have Facebook. It's not a big footprint. There's and it's not hundreds of posts or videos. We just started doing it, and I'm doing it myself, and so I don't have a lot of time. But if you give it a follow, I'd appreciate it. 6'8" International Rescue. You can follow me personally on social media, Mike Leum, Instagram, Facebook. And you mentioned Leave No Trace. So can we all agree to leave no tunes? There's nothing that really bugs me more than having somebody hiking with a boombox and making
Yes.
all kinds of noise. Can we put a stop to that, please?
Yes.
I agree. So, anyone else want to just any last questions? We'll give it a few moments here. Yes, thank you so much. Mike, anything else you want to?
Well, I can't wait to get out to LA County and do a hike with him. That's all I got to say.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Come
And,
on out.
and maybe a ride in that helicopter, but you know, you
No
got to walk
promises.
before you run.
Just as long as it's not as a victim.
Yes.
Well, thank you both so very much for this informative talk. We will be sharing this recording and everyone who joined and all the questions. We truly appreciate it. Mike, you were a wealth of information. Thank you for all you do. Thank you, Mike, for your leadership and for bringing this to the group. We really appreciate it and hope everyone has a good a good evening. And Mike, real quick, someone wanted to know if there's a Facebook link to follow you, or should
Yeah.
they just look up your name, Mike?
Yeah. Just my name. Just my name,
Okay.
Mike Leum. Leum.
EUM. Okay, I'm typing it
And
in the chat so you can grab it. Thank you all so very much.
Thank
Really
you, all
appreciate it.
hikers. We appreciate it. Tthank you,
be
Mike.
safe. Be
Have,
safe.
have a good
Take
night.
care, man.